verification sources, it states broker. Is the real estate agent a good verification source? They may be far more knowledgeable about the sale than the broker, especially if it's just a broker of record. He's just there, and is that in the law?
That's acceptable. To me, that's
is
acceptable.
Is it up to does the judge have latitude to judge that as an excellent source?
The judge has latitude to put weight to the source. You're going to judge what's the best source that you have for that information. And if it's actually the sales associate who negotiated the contract, who put everything, brought the parties together, helped negotiate the price, and you talk to that sales associate versus the broker in the office who just put his name or her name to the information, that's a better source data. That person has more information, and that would be acceptable to me.
I'm 100% in agreement. However, in the Monmouth County Board of Taxation, one of the commissioners said it's the real estate agents, not the broker. That's why you got to go to court, I guess, at some point.
In your income approach, we talked a little bit about looking at your income, looking at the expenses. The other part of it is the vacancy. You have 5%, 10%, just to throw around numbers. You got to go into the market and also find out what is the market vacancy. Without having support for that, it's going to come to be a problem. And you may get in on the income and on the expenses, and if you didn't properly support your vacancy, it may be that I'm going to use the other side's vacancy or come up with some other vacancy. So you need to get into the market. On your cap rate, not asking you to recreate the world, take the sales, do your analysis, and come up with the income and expense and come up with the derived cap rate. You can use published data. You can use the ACLIs, the core paths, the REIM, I think it is, reports. But understand that they are national in scope. They do break it down by region, and they'll break it down by a property type. But you've got to go further. You've got to talk to local lenders. You've got to talk to borrowers. What is going on in your market so that you can answer those questions? If you just give me, this is what the ACLI has said for the mortgage component part of the cap rate, using a band of investment, that's not going to carry the day. You've got to bring it back down. On the equity portion, you've got to talk to investors. You can't just look at the other alternative forms of investment, the treasury bills, municipal bonds, whatever else you might be looking at. Talk to investors. What are they looking for a return on the property? It's them that are making the market for you, and you've got to have that kind of support. If you provide that support, you're going to go a long way in coming up with the value that you want. On the cost approach, you're using the manuals. Remember, the manuals are collecting information on a national basis. They do break it down by region, then they give you a local cost multiplier and a time multiplier to bring it up to the time from when the page was produced to when you're doing your report. You've got to look at that and understand what's going on. So it is important that you touch base with local contractors. The hardest part of the cost approach, as we all know, is measuring depreciation. How do you measure that? That is so subjective. And we as judges, we understand that. And if you can give us pictures, as Chuck says, within the property, if it's a physical depreciation and what's going on, if there's some obsolescence, what's wrong with the layout of this facility versus what a new facility today would be built. An example I have is a nursing home case that I'm working on, where the taxpayer said, this is an older nursing home, older meaning it was built 15 years ago, and the treatment rooms for physical therapy, etc., that type of therapy, were all built for people that were patients of the nursing home to come in and use. And in today's market, with the changes in Medicaid and Medicare, they're really now open more for outpatient types of facilities, so that you can have people come in from the outside. You have bigger spaces, different types of modalities in there. And you're saying that was a physical obsolescence. It's too old, and you've got to take a deduct for that. And explain that and go into the market and look at those. So you need to look at that. You can't just take the depreciation schedule that's in the manual. That's not going to carry the day. That's not going to carry the day whatsoever. You've got to go in and look at it and support it. Support what you're doing. And I know I said that word all day long, but to me that's the most important thing. If you can get there and incredibly support the information in your report, you're going to go for an extended time.
Yeah, Judge, thank you. I appreciate all the information you've given us today. There's one little question that I still have that has to do with when you see something or when Chuck sees something. When you're looking at the capitalization rates, or you look at the income approach to value, where you capitalize at the end. And typically, what we've been taught is that you capitalize after the NOI, net operating income. In some cases now, some people are using debt coverage ratios before they capitalize the whole thing. What is your opinion about which of the two should be used? Because in financing, they want to have that debt cover ratio. But in typical situations, from what I understand, the NOI is the bottom line before you capitalize for the overall cap.
I have not seen anyone in my court use a debt coverage ratio and then capitalize from that. Everyone is using an NOI. I thought your question actually was going to go to tenant improvements. There's a movement afoot for the appraisers on the township side, the municipal side, that the tenant improvement is not an expense, but should be included in the capitalization rate. And to prove tenant improvement in and of itself requires a whole set of standards for you to even get there. One, you have to show that that's something that's given in the market of your building. What's the region that your market area is? And are other landlords given tenant improvements? Or is it only your property? If it's your landlord that's given tenant improvements, maybe just wants to fill the building up, no one else is doing it, that's not going to be an expense that you're going to get allocated out as an expense. And what is the amount of tenant improvement? That's difficult to get. I understand that. But you've got to go out into the market, see what your landlord's doing, your owner's doing, when they're giving the work letters, how much are they giving the work letter for, what's going on across the street, what's going on in the other neighborhood. Because you've got to show, one, tenant improvements are generally given, and two, what the dollar amount is that's generally given. But there is a change in, or at least a theory that's being proposed, that tenant improvements now should be part of the capitalization rate and not taken as a direct expense. What impact that'll have, I don't know. We haven't had the case go to fruition yet, where that theory has been espoused by the appraiser. The other area I want to talk about is what's a good comp? After you've done all your analysis and looking at it, how do I know that you had a good comp? And to me, the most important part, the first part of that answer to that question is, what's the highest and best use? Those are words we haven't said here, Chuck nor I have said all morning. But the highest and best use. What's the highest and best use of the subject? And then the highest and best use of your comps. You've got to know the zoning. It doesn't mean you have to be an expert, but you've got to know what are the permitted uses. I see appraisals coming in where the subject is light industrial. The comps are warehouse. Now, it sounds like they're about the same, but they don't have the same highest and best use. Or in the area where the light industrial is permitted, warehouse is not permitted. You can't make an adjustment for zoning, I don't believe. It's a very, very difficult thing to do. So you've got to have that same highest and best use. If your comp has the same highest and best use, then what makes it a good comp is your adjustments. And we need not go back through all of the support that you have to have. But to me, that's the critical element. Does the property, your comp, is it have the same highest and best use? Very, very important. And that's the first criteria that you have in your reports all the time. What's the highest and best use of the subject? That's easily said, everybody does that, but I've seen many, many times where comparable properties really do not have the same highest and best use. And I don't believe that gives you the opportunity to have comparability. Again, on your comps, they've got to be substantially similar. You're not going to use a two-story walk-up office rent rolls if you represent the taxpayer on a multi-story elevated on-site parking with cafeteria office. You're not going to use that, but I see that because it comes in with a little bit lower number if you use the two-story walk-up. That goes to your credibility, doesn't make it comparable. And the same thing is you're not going to use a Cape Cod to use for evaluation as a mansion. You've got to have the comparability. You have to have substantial, similar comparability.
Real quick question. I know we're getting toward the end of the hour.
Okay,
You have
sure.
more material.
No, I'm done.
I never found out that this. I did this. I was a young appraiser. I had a tax appeal of a Cape Cod in Short Hills, and it was assessed, this was a long time ago, for $1 million, and there were no sales of Cape Cods. But I had sales of what $1 million home went for in Short Hills, and they were like 4-bedroom, 2.5 bath, and I had a 2-bedroom, 1 bath. And I was trying to show, I was having problems with really good proofs on what my subject was worth, but I was trying to prove that it was impossible that the assessment could be correct. Would you we ended up settling. But would you give any weight to something that's so not comparable that the assessment must be wrong?
No.
Okay.
It's a good theory, and I'm not going to say I didn't try it when I was out in practice. But no, you've really got to support it. Lastly, what I wanted to just touch on is your relationship with the attorney. The first thing, hopefully you get brought in early on, or if you're bringing the case to the attorney, you get brought in, the two of you get together early on. Talk about the case. As Chuck said, know the theory of your case. What is that you are going to utilize as your main function in that case? Know the weaknesses. Tell the attorney, no, that is not a good theory. We're not going to win on that theory. You know the appraisal theory. The attorneys don't. Make the attorney read the report and not the day before. I see reports coming in. I see the attorney sitting in the back of the courtroom reading the report for the first time. You need to meet with the attorney, sit down, go over your testimony, more importantly, go over your cross-examination. Very, very important that you talk together and you work it in. You got to be a team. And as I said earlier on, at the end, you got to, on the post-trial briefs, you got to sit with the attorney again, go over the transcript, pick out the points that are good on your side and the points that aren't good on the other side. Lastly, as an expert, you're given opinions. You also have another function with attorneys. You're there to give them some information on cross-examination. You're helping them develop their questions of the other expert. So you need to look at the other expert's report, I believe. Now, I know some appraisers don't do that. They say, no, I didn't read the other side's report. I don't have any theory on that. But I think you need to. You need to be in the courtroom when the case is being going on for the other side. I see a lot of appraisers who come into courtroom, they testify, and when their testimony is done and complete, they leave. And the attorney's left there to do the cross-examination of the other side's expert, maybe 2, 3, 4 days later, or whenever it may come up. It doesn't have that expertise there. I know because there's dollars and cents associated with you being there. Those are things you need to talk about, but that's the kind of relationship you have to have. It's got to be one of mutual respect and understanding.
Just want to let everyone know that my PowerPoint presentation, I believe we're going to put it on the NAIF website if you want it. I also want to let you know that the judge was nice enough. He didn't swear me in today, and that actually had to do with which PowerPoint I ended up using.
Thank you all.
Thank you.